Welcome to the Campground Catalyst Podcast, the show dedicated to fueling success in outdoor hospitality. Whether you're an outdoor adventurer, a campground owner, or looking to build your legacy in outdoor hospitality, you're right where you need to be. We're here to guide you through the fascinating world of campground management, unique real estate strategies, and the gratifying opportunities created by outdoor hospitality. Our mission is to inspire and equip you with the knowledge and insights you need to build a successful business and create a legacy worth leaving. The Campground Catalyst Podcast is proudly sponsored by Beyonder Camp, your trusted outdoor hospitality experts. Subscribe now, join our active online community, and let's ignite our passions and potential together. Welcome back to Campground Catalyst. I'm Adam Lendy. Justin Hoggett, Don Spafford, how you guys doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Welcome back.
All right. We are again recording solo as Robert is hard at work in the trenches on the front lines of outdoor hospitality in Indiana in February. And
Getting a new manager going there.
Getting a new manager going. Boy, we are excited about that change. But a lot of changes we've had recently. We'll have to do a whole other episode just on personnel and really just building the right team at some point here.
And dealing with change. Maybe that's a episode, dealing with change.
That's been our entire business history. We've always been in change, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today's show topic is one that really transcends multiple categories on our podcast, but we had to pin it into one. So this is going to be a campfire cash flow segment, really having to do with buying a campground. But it really has a lot to do with the memory making too on operating the campground and really just knowing where you're at. And then, of course, it would even tie into legacy builders as well too, just, because this is something to consider as it comes time to sell your campground in the future. Financial reports, they're really the heartbeat of the business. And I would say, I'm going to throw out a number there that's not scientific, that 90% of campground owners are not in a relationship with their finances, right or wrong.
Well, it's tough to
Pretty
know
close,
if we're
anyway.
right. Yeah, send out a survey. We'll probably go, what's a financial report? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'd say they're finding like their handwritten Excel kind of grid sheet. Like, here's my financial report, or you're talking a full-on actual thing that their accountant would give them. Right? Then most likely, probably not. Yeah, I think most of them are still, keeping it themselves, a simple form or something, just their bank statements maybe, and saying, okay, we made this much and we spent that much. We're here or there. So
yeah, is the bank account going up?
Need to learn more. Yeah.
Well, I'll give an example. I mean, we had a campground owner just recently who we're talking about buying their campground, and we were waiting on 2023 numbers. This is, again, mid to end February 2024. And seriously, they couldn't even tell us how much revenue they'd made. Well, I don't know yet. I got to wait till I get my numbers from my accountant. I mean, holy cow. Like, that's kind of an eye opener, that you aren't staying in front of your numbers and you aren't aware of how much revenue you made. Maybe you don't have everything, all your income and expenses settled properly in your books. But, the thing is, I know that's common. We see this all the time. People rely on their bookkeeper, their CPA to give them the numbers, and if you're only looking at it once a year at tax time, how are you making game time decisions throughout the year?
If you're still keeping your receipts in a shoebox, maybe it's time to, advance a little bit in technology in your favor.
Although that's a step above people who don't keep their receipts.
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, very good. So like I said, this really transcends three different categories. I think a logical place for us to start is in what would be our memory makers part, as it dictates the operations. Justin, this is something you're a little more involved with regularly in our company, and you're usually the first one to sound the alarm if something's off in a category. So how do you use financial statements to dictate the day-to-day operations of a campground?
Well, the trick, kind of going back to what you said, is having your CPA, having someone produce these reports. I'll be clear, I do not produce our reports. I do have to trust someone to do that, and that's our CFO. So, numbers are only as good as the person getting them into the system as well, right? Like Don said, the shoebox of receipts. So is someone actually doing something with those receipts, or are they just trusting that that was a valid expense? Sometimes it's not. So you really have to know what's what, have the processes in place. Are people submitting expense reports? Are we even monitoring what is And there I jump off the stream again. Jumping into the reports, we have all those numbers that just, you create a budget, right? Number one is January 1st, we release a budget to all of our staff. And following that, how close are we? That's a big indicator. If, some of the big red flags has been our labor numbers, but the other big red flag is our income. Is it matching what we expected? And having the systems in place to monitor that, a good reservation system is going to have those metrics as well, your occupancy, et cetera. But comparing a little bit of what the manager is seeing. And let me jump back in here. And there I am, guys. Now you can see me. Having the general managers, we're all confirming the occupancy and the income associated, but those reports can be in Excel. You can, if you want to be fancy, you could pivot table on what GL accounts are showing what, and we can get pretty granular with it. And that's some of our key areas of focus is then putting up a dashboard, which we can talk about later as well, of watching real time how these numbers are coming in.
Well, that's going to be a great thing for us to hit on in a little bit here, is how you're overhauling our data metrics right now at Beyonder, so that we have a real-time view of where we stand in all of our key indicators. You hit on it early, and I think that's an important thing, is the budget versus actual. The trouble is a lot of people can get a P&L, which is of course a record of the past, but a lot of people don't take the time to put together a budget. I think it's an often overlooked thing, or it's maybe something somebody did when they made their first business plan or built their first pro forma, when they were building their campground, but maybe haven't kept up with the exercise going forward. And if you don't know when you're winning, how do you make changes? How do you make adjustments? Or if you don't know if you're losing, how do you react? I mean, I guess without having that budget versus actual, I don't know how you get there. So, that's something that even we have had to, optimize our process on, is getting a budget that actually correlates to reality, that's based upon where we want to be, but also where we've been realistically. Things like the expense ratio, having that factored in appropriately, having a realistic idea of what the revenue is going to look like and the expenses associated with that. And then, like you mentioned, I mean, with the payroll example, that's something that we have personal experience with, that if you aren't focusing on it, if you aren't monitoring and inspecting it, it can get out of control real quick. And that's where having that statement, makes a lot of sense. So I think now's probably maybe as good a time as any before we pivot to another topic to talk a little bit about, what a dashboard looks like and what the importance of that is.
Well, it's an opportunity to look at the numbers real time, and those allow us to pivot quickly. And as you mentioned, if you're only looking at it once a year, you're gonna be a little behind the eight ball there. So how can we be as in front of our metrics as possible, and seeing those financial reports in a graph or scale kind of situation where you're just not like glazing over, falling asleep, going, "Oh my God, what is this?" Right? Because I know sometimes that's the way I get, at least a long list of numbers, but I like to see percentages. I like to see improvements. Obviously, bar graphs on the upward trajectory is nice to see, right? There's all pretty colors you can add, but the true premise of everything here is the income. And if you don't have the income, you can't pay the expenses. We all know that expenses have there's your standard with mortgage, insurance, and stuff that you can prorate across the year. In terms of your financial reports, but it's the variable expenses that matter most, and the income. So if you can keep track of those on your dashboard, watching your occupancy along with your income on a daily, weekly, monthly focus, then you can pivot some marketing. You can set promotions. We have different ways of increasing our occupancy standards throughout the year. And then those variable expenses, how can we adjust those quickly compared to maybe a lacking income period? So that dashboard, again, is something that we can watch. We're going to put a monitor up on our wall, so we can, every time we're in our conference room, we're looking at it. Yeah, those numbers shouldn't be a surprise. If you're finding out at the end of the year how you did,
then you've been guessing and hopefully getting lucky, but really having that real time idea of what's happening is gonna inform the decisions you make on whether you take on a new expense item, or the success of a certain revenue item, or the effect of a marketing campaign that on what it has on your numbers. And that's some of the stuff that we are going to be tracking in our dashboard that we've had no measure on in the past, that I'm excited about, is just the ability to say, when our marketing director Jake runs a campaign, and we can actually see the impact of his efforts. We can see the return on every dollar he spent on those marketing efforts. That's going to be a really cool thing. When we can look at our payroll budget as a component of the occupancy of a campground, rather than just guessing how we're going to staff the campground, and we can actually really get scientific about it, it's going to make a difference in the end, which leads into the next segment of this, which, if I were to put this in its own show, would be the campfire cash, or the campfire cash flow section, which is going to be, and also the legacy builders, which is when you sell the campground, whether you're the seller or the buyer, these statements are critical. And we've talked about this in other episodes before, when it comes to evaluating the value of the campground. But I want to highlight it again because it's worth mentioning. If you own a campground today and you don't have a clear idea of your numbers in your books, you're likely leaving money on the table, or you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're selling your property at a ding and discount price because nobody can actually make heads or tails of how your business is performing. Am I off base on that?
No. And we've seen all types, obviously, and we've had, I don't know. I can say people have spent months, even after we've been under contract, to try to decipher the code, in a sense, all those numbers. And clearly they had no idea what was going on with their business. And, is it a bad thing necessarily if you're watching your money grow and you're just winging it? I mean, okay, you're doing a good job. It's growing. Great. Not necessarily a bad thing, but then, yeah, as you exit and some of the numbers that are required to really evaluate the true business value, then that's where you're really going to suffer.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think about how many campground owners we've talked to before who measure the success of their business by their bank account balance. They aren't considering things like accrual and, accounting methods and, whether their money's earned. They go, well, I just got all my seasonal deposits in for the year, so, I'm doing really well. It's December and I've got $500,000 in the bank. Well,
it's not earned yet.
It's not earned yet. That money's not yours. If you have a major, loss on the property, you're going to be giving that money back, so you better not spend it yet. But also, do you have any sense of what your expense ratio is? So,
exactly. Yeah. I was throwing there too. If you going back to the point, if they're not watching their expenses and everything that's going on, it might be something simple. Maybe you've got like a water leak somewhere you're not even aware of. You're just realize, hey, the water bill's been kind of high for a while. Maybe it's just normal, but maybe you've got a leak that you didn't are aware of, and that alone is costing you extra money per month, which therefore takes off the value of your properties. Do a simple fix on that. You notice the problem in your financial reports that, hey, these expenses are up kind of high. Why? Let's check it out and investigate and see. That could lead you to fixing something that could bring you a whole much more value down the road when you want to sell it. Or even going back to keeping it simple. Not even look at the high level reporting stuff, but if you're not aware of what money's coming in and what money's going out, how do you know if you've got possibly some untrustworthy employees that may be just stealing from the pot and you don't even know about it. So that's something that you got to be aware of, and be sure you're monitoring and keeping track of everything.
Yeah, and your example about like the water leak, Don, is good. I mean, it pops up in my head. Just think about personal finance. Nowadays, everybody, do you pay any bills yourself anymore? Like, do you actually sit down with your bills and cut checks and pay them out yourself? Or is it just auto pay? Am I the only one that does auto pay?
No.
You guys auto pay everything too? Okay, great. And so when we don't... when we have everything on auto pay, we have no idea what our expenses are. I hate to say that I could not tell you what my last water bill was at my house, but I do know recently I happened to stumble across an internet bill and realized my internet had gone up 60%. And it was like 6 months ago. So I called the company and I was able to renegotiate it. But, that's an example of my personal finance. Of course, I'm sharing some of my bad hygiene there. But think about when this is in business, we're talking orders of magnitude. My $80 internet bill compared to a campground's internet bill, which, what do we pay for our campground internet?
Some of them are reasonable, but, it's around $300 to $400
on the low end, I'd say. We got a couple that are, in the order of $1,000 a month, don't we?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But
Well,
TVs, yes. TV services.
yeah, I might be mixing
opportunity.
things up, but the point being that stuff can get out of control real quick, and most campground owners I think are paying a bookkeeper and a CPA to be on their staff. But if those folks aren't giving you the numbers you need to make those game time operating decisions, then you're paying people to do work for the government. Quite frankly, is there a better way to put it? They're organizing stuff for the government for you, and you're paying them to do it, and you're gaining no other benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they're basically just keeping track. You give them the numbers and they just put it in a report. They're not ones to tell you, hey, by the way, your expenses went up. Did you know? They're not paying attention to that. That's not their job. They're just to put it into your tax returns or whatever. But it's your job to make sure you stay on track with that and see, hey, did my expenses go up? And why? And kind of similar thing to you. I've had that issue happen with some of my rental properties in the past, where all of a sudden I noticed the water bill actually went up like a ton. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? I called the water company to see did they increase the rates or what? And they're like, well, maybe, yeah, you're right. This is like double what your normal usage is. Let's go check to see if there's a leak or something. So little things like that. If you're if it's on auto pay, you won't even notice. You'll just be paying it, and at the end of the year realize, hey, my bank account's a bit less than I thought it would be, but I'm still up. No big deal. But you got to investigate and look into what's going on.
Right, exactly. And we can't use the excuses anymore that we don't know what's happening. We have to wait for our CPA to tell us, because that's taking a very reactive approach to the business, or totally passive altogether. We have an obligation as business owners to be involved in the financial health of our businesses, because as we tie this into the legacy builders part of this, you're going to want to sell your campground at some point, and you're going to want to walk away with a fair and healthy, reward for your efforts in that business. And if you didn't keep proper books, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. Looking at cap rates today, figure it probably a 10x fold on every dollar that you left off your income that could have been there. So you leave $10,000 off your income because you had poor bookkeeping, or you missed out on $100,000 in revenue. That could be $100,000 to $1 million in value when you go to sell that thing someday.
Or even not selling it, if you just want to refinance it, maybe just getting a lower note or pull some money out. That same information is useful for refinance too.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the water bill, and it kind of rings a bell on a recent email I got from one of my apartment buildings, and it says, "Hey, you've got a consistent water flow. You should check it out, and this is the result of your extra water usage." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Right? And wouldn't we all love to see those reminders or alarms for us if there's something, as a water leak that's happening, aka money just draining from your bank account and you have no idea? Those are kind of type of the things that we're looking for in the dashboard, in our reports. Sometimes, you get a water bill at the end of the month. You just spent 30 days plus or whatever it is spending money on water that was just dripping. But the good thing is that you did catch it after 30 days and you have an opportunity here. One of the things that I liked hearing before, and I think it's just a very good general tactic, is to go through your report. You can get it through QuickBooks, you can get it through any of your accounting platforms, and highlight the comparisons between the budget and the actual. What happened this month? Highlight it. Why is it off? Dig into it. Ask questions. If you're the manager, make sure you understand what's going on. If you're just the owner, ask the manager. Right. Always important to follow through with what you're seeing, and sometimes it's a little bit of pay Peter. What is it? Pay Peter, Rob Paul to pay Peter, right?
Rob Peter to pay Paul, I think, is a classic example. Yeah.
So excuse me for that, but the premise is, sometimes you might have to adjust your expenses in other areas and say, you know what, maybe this month I'm not gonna this repair, I didn't need to paint it and spend the money on something right now. I had to spend money on that water leak, right, or whatever it is, and just readjusting a little bit along the way to make sure that you're not in the red. You want to stay in that black.
Absolutely. Well, very good. Gentlemen, I think the common theme here is you have to be, you're responsible for your business at the end of the day. You have to be in relationship with the numbers. If you don't have a working knowledge of how your financial reports read, do yourself a favor and go get the education on it. There are a number of online courses that do this. I'm not even going to advocate for any one of them because I don't have one. But I know that we put our managers through one before that we bought, and it was sufficient to at least help you understand, general accounting principles and how these statements work and how to read them, and of course how to forecast and budget. So don't just rely and completely outsource to a professional unless it's somebody who is actually giving you regular actionable steps to take on the numbers that are coming back. Anything else to add to that, gentlemen?
No, I think maybe taking it back to the title of this, for better decision making, right? So we're talking about things you can do to improve, to kind of cut those losses or whatever, but maybe for something making those decisions, right? So if maybe you're doing something, you're spending some money doing some kind of a special event that you think is great and fun, and it costs you some money, but you're not seeing any results. Maybe it's time to say, okay, make the decision that this is not getting the return I was looking for. Let's quit doing this and transition to something else, or something else along those lines, right? So making those decisions that can just improve your property, improve the revenue, and your income for it.
Right on. And you guys didn't think we could talk for 20 minutes about P&Ls. All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Campground Catalyst Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us. Give us a 5-star rating if you're listening to us on Apple, and join us on Patreon. That's where the discussion is really happening. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Next time.
Mahalo. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Campground Catalyst Podcast, where we take you behind the scenes in the fun and gratifying world of outdoor hospitality. We hope you were inspired by today's show and better equipped to take the next steps in your journey. Remember, you can continue the conversation and connect with fellow enthusiasts by visiting our website and joining the Campground Catalyst community on Patreon at campgroundcatalyst.com. There, Patreon members get exclusive access to special listener perks, they get their opportunity to engage with the host, and they get their questions answered on one of our future upcoming shows. The Campground Catalyst Podcast is proudly sponsored by Beyonder Camp, your trusted partner in fueling your success in outdoor hospitality. Until next time, keep both your campfires and your passions burning.